Jai Anilo Premadano Paramakacho
Vivekanandasya Jananjana Sadakara Chaksu Umritam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manudastam Stapitam Yena Bhutare Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Vivati Swasam Dantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jatavat Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sarvajatam Sahagana Gunatan Nitam Stritam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Pidijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanatamscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Kachalane Nirvishesha Shundavadi Paschaktate Shatarane Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namane Sri Vasudhanavi Devi Dayataya Kripavadaye Krishna Samanta Vigyana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Aruja Mujala Premadya Sri Rupa Nuga Bhakti Das Sri Gauda Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namaskate Namaste Gauravani Sri Morte Dinitarane Rupa Nuga Viridapa Siddhanta Dvanta Harane Namo Gauda Kishadaya Shakshat Vairagya Morte Vipalambada Sambhade Padambo Jayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namane Gauda Shakti Sarupaya Rupa Nuga Varayate Gauda Vira Baba Gomestam Nidasta Sahajana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhama Sri Jagannathayate Namaha Vanchakalpa Kadubhas Jati Vasanjali Vachapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabharanaya Krishna Prima Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauritashe Namaha He Krishna Karana Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatate Gopesha Gopika Kantara Ha Kantanamostate Jayatam Sadato Pango Mama Mandamater Kate Matsara Sapatam Bojo Radha Madanamo Hano Dividindaranda Kapituru Madhya Srimad Ratnagara Singhasana Sto Sisi Radha Sri Gopa Devo Krastali Viseva Manosmanami Siman Rasarasaram Dibang Sivata Tatashti Taha Karakandena Samya Gopi Gopinata Shri Estuna Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshari Vrishabhara Sutadevi Pranami Hare Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vyasa Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama. So we are celebrating Sri Vyasa Puja today. And Sri Vyasa Puja means the celebration. Puja means worship. To worship Vyasa. Vyasa means Veda Vyasa, the compiler of the Vedic literatures, because we understand that the Vedas are eternal. They have no origin except the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are the breathing of the Lord. And it is Vyasa, however, the literary incarnation, Satyadish Avatar, who gathered them together, compiled them, and divided them, and distributed them amongst his disciples. So, because Vyasa is the literary incarnation, and because the Vedas are the mother and the source of transcendental knowledge for us, and knowledge is the means by which ignorance is destroyed, and when ignorance is destroyed, then we have no more cause to remain in this material world any longer. Therefore, on this day, we give respect and worship to Vyasa and his representatives. So, traditionally, it is performed sometimes on Guru Purnima, the full moon day in which the Guru is traditionally worshipped in India, but also Srila Prabhupada established that it may be performed on the day of the spiritual master, an individual spiritual master's birthday, and therefore we are celebrating it today. So although it appears that the celebration is for me. The truth of the matter is that the celebration is for Vyasa and for all of those who represent Vyasa. So, we have begun properly by worshipping the deities to begin with, by having their darshan, and then by performing the Guru Puja to Srila Prabhupada, the founder, Acharya of ISKCON. Because without Srila Prabhupada, this temple would not be here, Sri Sri Radhakal Chanji would not be installed, and none of us would be sitting here today, period. It would be somewhere else. So, to worship Srila Prabhupada is to acknowledge that our very spiritual existence is entirely due to His causeless mercy. It can't be said any other way. Therefore, although every disciple can feel pride about his or her spiritual master, the reality is that we can all feel a communal pride in what Prabhupada did, which is, I cannot see how it can be excelled or equaled, because I can't imagine how anybody else is going to. I guess if they go to other planets and spread Krishna consciousness on other planets, and if they were successful in doing so, then it might be possible that there might be someone to equal Prabhupada's achievement. But failing that, I think that the single act of spreading Krishna consciousness to practically every country of the world is not possible to be equaled. So we have given respect to Srila Prabhupada. On this day, it is also traditional to give some respect to Prabhupada's initiated disciples, so I will do that now. I'd like to give them a garland and some chandan and a small gift token of our appreciation for them, because they are repositories of Prabhupada's qualities, and by their association we are brought closer to Srila Prabhupada. I have personally always felt that I am entirely dependent, first of all, I would have to say jointly, upon Prabhupada and my God brothers and God sisters. I've never been able to, when Prabhupada was physically present, I would have said I was always totally dependent upon Prabhupada. But in the course of his physical disappearance, I had to take shelter of my God brothers and God sisters as much as I have taken shelter of Prabhupada. And so for me, they are my lifeline in spiritual life, and I'm totally dependent upon them. And then after them, I'm dependent upon immediately my disciples and other well-wishers and all of the devotees of ISKCON. So I want to at least offer my small token of respect to them, and I'll just, you can indulge me while I walk around the temple room and give them a garland. I can do a little, you can, as wife, I can just chant Hare Krishna on the Mridanga while we can have a little soft kirtan while we're going around. Unfortunately, there is so much flooding in Houston that many of our devotees from Houston have not yet arrived here. Apparently the water is raining for 4 days in a row continually, and Shakuntala apparently couldn't even get out of her house. The water was so high up on the streets. So there are many devotees who would have been here, but by the mercy of Lakshmi Priya's video, they can watch everything. So, I thought today that to speak about glorification of the different spiritual masters who are represented here by their disciples. And that would be a nice appreciation for everything. And I will begin, of course, by speaking, and I can only speak very briefly, so I think each one could be spoken about at great length, but the time does not permit at all. So practically I can only mention them and say a few words from my own limited appreciation. That means that there's unlimited good that can be said of each of these personalities, and it will remain for another opportunity to do so. I have already spoken about Srila Prabhupada. I think one thing we have not yet done is a closed circuit television and a room for mothers. That would be a nice thing to do. Where's Radha, you know? Where is it? Hiding somewhere. Anyway, we could take up a collection for that. I think this will be a good project. The temple will arrange some room where we'll do a closed circuit television, and we can agree today that we will fund that. Does that sound like a good idea for mothers? Mothers and babies and crazy people may. So I have spoken about Srila Prabhupada, and I will say a few words. One of the things that Prabhupada has done is that, I think also, by the way, I should say that another wonder of Prabhupada, that in spreading the movement around the world, one can see this visibly. Last evening I was walking up the block with Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu, and where is it? Yeah, and we were saying that as you walk one by one past each house, you feel like you're passing through either a different continent or a different nation of the world. You know, you go through the Philippines, you go through Singapore, you pass South Africa, you pass Fiji, pass through China, pass through Argentina, pass through Mexico, and Canada, and England, and there's so many, Germany. We were just, Spain. We were going through so many different places and found that there were people gathered in this community from all over the world. And therefore Prabhupada said, and Jayapataka Maharaj, of course, made that statement once, you know, United Nations, right, of the spiritual world, in one of his famous, outbursts. United Nations of the spiritual world, that's ISKCON. So Prabhupada really did open up the world for Gaudiya Vaishnavism. There was, when my dissertation comes out, you'll see that there was a forerunner to Prabhupada in 1903 or 4, named Krishna Prema, Swami Krishna Prema, who came, and he was a Gaudiya Vaishnava. And he published a book called Krishna, the something, I think the Ocean of Love, I forget the name of his book. But he preached for some time, but had some following, and then went back to Vrindavan and passed away. But the fact is that the movement did not take hold at that time. It is Prabhupada who really opened up Krishna consciousness. And one of the things that Prabhupada wanted was that his God brothers and their disciples should expand and travel and preach and join him. And unfortunately that never took place. He invited a number of them to join him, but they did not take that invitation up. Nevertheless, one of the devotees here, her spiritual master, is a god brother of Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Shraman Maharaj, a very saintly Vaishnava who passed away some years ago. And she is from Singapore, and she took shelter of him. Her name is Bhakti, and she took shelter of him as his second to last disciple. And so we remember him and honor him on this day. Prabhupada's sannyas guru, Keshav Maharaj, has a number of so many disciples. And one of them is Narayan Maharaj, His Holiness Narayan Maharaj, who has a disciple here, Ekanath Das. And Narayan Maharaj and I have had very intimate and close association. And unfortunately, circumstances have conspired against us that we have not been able to be with each other as we were previously. But nevertheless, he is spreading consciousness of Vrindavan and Radha Krishna all over the world now, and giving some inspiration, hope to so many devotees who have lost hope. And so we honor him today, on this day. I'm going to read off names of people in order of their, they have disciples here. His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, a very intimate friend of mine, like a younger brother. He joined Krishna Consciousness and took his first, second, and sannyasa initiations all within a period of 6 months' time. And he, of course, makes these very nice videos. And, oh, you're here. When you come back through this door, come up here. I wanted to give you a garland as the past temple present, but I forgot. I should honor you as well. Bhaktivedanta Maharaj is making these video series of Prabhupada, and of course, very enthusiastic and preacher, Calcutta born like Prabhupada. So he is to be honored today. Then His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, the most energetic, perhaps, preacher in our movement, certainly the most vigorous kirtan dancer, graduate of Princeton, very visionary preacher, bold preacher, is remembered today and given honor. His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj preaches in Eastern Europe, Russia. He's also a very saintly and powerful preacher who has worked very sincerely for so many years in many different countries in Eastern Europe. Give Garland to give it Almighty again. Prabhupada said the temple president is the representative of the spiritual master. So he's also a representative of Vyasa. And past presidents are also to be. Should be given even more respect, because they're elders. Then dear Krishna Goswami Maharaj, His Holiness, started a very nice temple in North Carolina. He's now also the GBC for Fiji. So he gets to see so many of my hundreds of disciples there, and he's very pleased with how nicely the Fiji devotees were being trained. He's told me that. And he's also preaching now in Europe. Very nice sannyasi. His Holiness Dhanavir Goswami Maharaj has started a Vedic college in Kansas City. He was formerly an All-American volleyball star. I say that because he listed on his vita. And he's a very strict follower of Prabhupada's teachings. And he has his disciples here in Texas. His Holiness Damodar Swami Maharaj has many of his disciples who are here today. He's a very big brain, very super intelligent ability to teach, to attract many intelligent and young people to Krishna consciousness. And he's lived in Vrindavan for nearly 18 years. He's very absorbed in and capable of taking people on tours of the holy dhams and revealing the dhams to them. I should have mentioned this next person. It was my oversight, otherwise I would have gone in order. I named Prabhupada's godbrother first, and the disciple of Prabhupada Sannyas Guru second, and the next person I would have named was His Holiness Glorifications Swami Maharaj, who is now departed from this world. Very exalted Vaishnava. I don't think it's I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that he is a liberated soul. He left his body in Mayapur in the midst of the Gaur-Purnima festival, discussing the intimate pastimes of Radha Krishna, and in the midst of talking with Bhaktirupa and Vinodvani in Mayapur, he gave up his body. And very elevated personality. So we remember him. I had many nice opportunities to associate with him and to render personal service to him. And he's a very elevated person. And my very dear godbrother, His Holiness Giriraj Swami, who is just like a brother. He and I, we speak every week on telephone, has a number of disciples here, and very dear to Srila Prabhupada, who treated him like a pet son always. He's now recovering from his heart illness. So we honor him today. Then my godbrother, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, an extremely empowered preacher who has established a magnificent temple in New Delhi, continues to look after Prabhupada's temples in Bombay and Vrindavan. Tamal Krishna Maharaj is a very strict follower of Prabhupada and tirelessly works, despite all of his sometimes health problems, but it never stops him from preaching and practicing Krishna consciousness. So we give him all honor today. Then probably the most intelligent member of our movement, he's certainly a genius, His Holiness Sri Dayananda Das Goswami Maharaj, who somehow coerced me into going into academia, only to give up academia, for which the score is not at all settled yet. I'm only waiting till I get my degree to go and meet him. He's avoiding me. But he and I are very, very close, and he's, as anyone knows, he's probably the most humorous and most intelligent devotee that we have. He's capable of defeating all arguments, even his own arguments. He can turn it around, defeat them. He's a rhetorician. So we give him all respect. He, of course, has completed the translation of the Srimad Bhagavatam for Srila Prabhupada, and he's the protector of ISKCON Siddhanta. Then a very ecstatic devotee, His Holiness Jai Satchidananda Swami, who credits me with having been the first devotee that he ever saw in Germany when Prabhupada sent me to Germany to preach. And Satchidananda was a teenager going to a department store with his mom, and he saw me on the street preaching and remembered me. And he's a very, very elevated soul. He's always absorbed in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Radha Krishna Lila, and preaches especially in Germany and many countries around Germany. He likes to do bhajan also, spends much time in the dhams, chanting the holy names. He's written a book recently as well. Now I'm naming one of our godbrothers who's not active in ISKCON, but still who I'll go back because someone was missed. I'm naming some people who may not be considered to be in good standing in ISKCON, but nevertheless I honor them today. One of them is my godbrother Hansaduta Prabhu, who was very close godbrother of mine, close friend. He's a very extraordinary kirtan leader and very bold preacher. Unfortunately, he had some difficulties, and we are temporarily separated, but still I honor him today. And similarly, our really first person who shaved up and did so many things in ISKCON. His Holiness Kirtanananda Swami Maharaj, who's also separated from us, but who has disciples in Texas. Even though he's in a very awkward and difficult position today, still he goes on giving class every day through the telephone and preaches to disciples in different parts of the world, and it's impossible for him to stop preaching Krishna consciousness. And of course he started and established the New Vrindavan community, so we show respect to him today. My godbrother Krishna Prabhu, who is at Oxford doing a PhD and who has much close contact with me nowadays because of our academic work that we share. In fact, we're co-authoring a particular essay right now, which will be an interesting essay on how theology, philosophy, how there are places within our philosophy which are flexible enough to allow for sufficient alterations or changes to be made. I know Prabhupada said don't ever change anything, but obviously Prabhupada himself made adjustments. So you can say we are looking at different parts of our philosophy that allow for various adjustments to be made so that Krishna consciousness can be more applicable and expanded far beyond the range of what it is now. So we're writing an essay like that, which I will present at the American Academy of Religion this year, and it will be published eventually in a book. Then the first devotee of our movement, His Holiness Mukunda Goswami Maharaj, who personally welcomed me, was one of the devotees who welcomed me into ISKCON. He taught me how to play the mridanga. Then Prabhupada gave me further lessons in mridanga playing, but Mukunda Maharaj was one of the persons who did. I worked with him very closely in England, and Prabhupada said of him that he was a born Brahmin. Said he was born as a Brahmin. His quality and nature is that of a Brahmin. He's a very, very pure-hearted person. I can't imagine him having any enemies. He's very saintly Vaishnava. He has disciples here. Then a very saintly devotee who I look forward to becoming more and more close to, because so many of my close friends are his close friends, and somehow circumstances just have never allowed us to be together. But apart from my own contaminated nature, he doesn't have any impurities, so if he tolerates me, I hope to become very close with him. His Holiness Niranjan Swami Maharaj, who, despite his problems of health, travels all over Russia, many, many, many countries, many cities rather. He's also the GBC in Boston. We honor him today. Then a powerful preacher who has spread Krishna consciousness in various parts of the world. His Grace Prita Prabhu, a very strong, often opinionated person, and often his opinions and mine don't always agree, but he and I always give great respect to each other. I always admire his courage. He's a very powerful Srimad Bhagavatam speaker and Sankirtan leader, so we honor him today. Another devotee who is not with us at the present time, but who was perhaps the greatest organizer of Sankirtan in America, His Grace Rameswar Prabhu, who I think was a great loss to our movement that he left, because he was such a tremendous visionary. I also didn't get along so well with him, but that doesn't mean that I didn't give him the greatest honor, and I still do, and I only lament the fact that he is not there at the head of our Sankirtan armies, and the BBT as well, great visionary. Then a devotee from India, who has many thousands of disciples. He's a very powered speaker, Srimad Bhagavatam. His Holiness Radha Govinda Swami Maharaj, who has disciples in Houston. He's a very charismatic and attractive preacher of the Bhagavatam and a great asset to our ISKCON society. Then a devotee who has proven himself to be a very extraordinary personality. Perhaps he might be the most popular devotee in ISKCON today. His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, who was a sadhu from the time he joined ISKCON and has shown the qualities of a sadhu more visibly, I suspect, than any other of our leaders. And so many people feel that this is the exemplary type of personality that we want our leaders to be. I certainly cannot follow like that. I have to be a different type of person because of my nature. But he and I are very, very close. And he looks up to me as his older brother. And but he's a very special Vaishnava. I don't think there's any temple or group of devotees that can compare with his temples in Mumbai and Pune and with the devotees there. They are, they're extraordinary persons and they have an extraordinary guru. So we give them all honor today. Then, very learned devotee who has protected ISKCON and continues to do so. His Grace Ravindra Swami Prabhupada, who, although he has so many Brahminical qualities, has also got many Kshatriya qualities, and he's quite fearless, more than I can think of most people being. He has taken on many challenges to defend our movement, even at the risk of his own life, but he does so with the power of his pen. Probably the best writer in ISKCON. He and Satsvarupa Maharaj, I think, are probably the best two writers our movement has, and he's just a very, very qualified person. I pray that he has good health and that he can lead our movement more and more in the future. Then His Grace Rohini Sutta Prabhu, a great Sankirtan devotee, one of the biggest book distributors our movement ever has had, Sankirtan leaders who preaches in the Soviet Union, in Europe, in Switzerland. Very nice devotee, very, very humble devotee in many respects, and has disciples here, and we offer him all respect. Then perhaps again, one of the senior devotees of our society, along with Mukunda Maharaj and Kirtananda. Probably, again, I said that about Radhanath, but Satsvarupa Maharaj cannot be said to be any less exemplary as a sadhu, and in ways exemplifies the type of sadhu. He's a renunciate, like a monk, and a recluse in a way. He's the most prolific author our movement has. He's the most humble devotee I think our movement has. And humility is supposed to be the most important quality of a Vaishnava. I don't think there is a person who's more capable of ridding himself of any impurities. His books are very, very special and wonderful. He's probably the only person I can think of that has the right to just write all day and not think that he's neglecting or shirking duties. I think that is his duty. He tolerates a tremendous amount of physical difficulties, and he's really our elder godbrother, and I show him and offer him all my respects. And finally, we came to T, but I'll go to V also, is that His Grace, His Holiness Trivikram Swami Maharaj, very nice devotee who Prabhupada told to go to China with me. And then I asked Prabhupada, finally I said, I'll agree to go as long as I don't have to go with Trivikram Maharaj. Which was, as Prabhupada said later on to me, it's your shortcoming, not his, that makes you say that. because he looked at me and he said, Trivikram Maharaj will do anything I said, meaning you won't always do everything. You will argue back with me, as Trivikram Maharaj will not argue with me. But he's a wonderful devotee. Anybody who knows him, he has a great sense of humor. Keshavati Prabhu has gone out to spend some time. He's preaching now in Sacramento. He's gone there. It's opened a preaching center. And of course he was preaching in Poland. And very nice devotee, one of the most early disciples, and one of the first sannyasis of our movement. It's hard for me to believe that His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami doesn't have a disciple here. He's got them, you know, in every nook and corner of the world. So, just in case there is a disciple, no doubt there must be an aspiring disciple, because if there isn't, just by these words, there will be one day. We should, in Houston, so there you go. So, we say that I don't think that there's anyone who gives himself as totally as Jayapataka Maharaj. Sometimes he's criticized for various, you know, for his overly enthusiastic traveling schedules, etc. But I personally think that he's simply propelled by a desire to serve the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's phenomenal. I think he is. What happened? He's a phenomenal person with unlimited energy and strength. He's unlimited pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that come alive when he speaks them. One of the pillars of the Mayapur project, and so we remember him today. And then another person who has disciples in Houston, Veerbahu Prabhu, very learned devotee, extremely learned. His wife, equally learned, Karta Prabhu. Both of them close friends of mine. And, you know, he's a person who preaches very selflessly throughout South America as well as in Los Angeles. So we remember him. Now, have I left anyone, neglected anyone? Well, it's not bad. If I had to neglect anyone, then it should have been, you know, a person who really is my brother, Giri Hari Maharaj, who has a disciple here, and I beg her forgiveness. But really, I think that if there was anyone I could neglect, you know, you can neglect someone who's that close because he will never take offense. He's a person who has single-handedly assisted me more than any other devotee, without, I don't think, any close compare. He has, it's like, you know, Ram and Lakshman. He has just stood by my side and done everything for me that a younger brother would do. It's only due to him that the whole Asian part of my zone is able to be maintained, and that I don't have to be there as much as I should be there. And you know, everybody, he's the co-GBC here. And so many ways how his name was neglected is only due to Yogamaya potency. He deserves it. See, Yogamaya is from the Philippines. So it takes a Filipino to bewilder everybody. Since Giri Hari Maharaj's headquarters in the Philippines. These persons, there are of course Shiksha Gurus, and I could speak about them, and it wouldn't be wrong, like His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Goswami, His Grace Mahatma Prabhu. And although they have not accepted disciples, I think that they are no less qualified and eminent in their preaching ability, in their strength to deliver conditioned souls. I think there are others here as well, even among disciples of Prabhupada's disciples who act as Shiksha Gurus. And the fact that I don't mention them is not to mean that they're any less qualified in representing Sri Vyasa Dev. So it's 9 o'clock, and this is how I chose to speak. I could have, and I would have liked to also have spoken something more personal about myself in relationship to the mercy that I get from all of these persons. but I'm a little worried because of our schedule. Disciples are supposed to fast on this day, but we God brothers and God sisters don't have to, so we're going to take a little prasadam, and then we have to start again in 25 minutes, which is a fast meal. I'll say something in 5 or 10 more minutes, if that's okay. What they can do is, rather than just go up to the kitchen, tell them to make the plates. And put the plates out on the table if they're going to get a little cold. Just leave whatever is hot off the plate, put all the plates on the table, and then when they come, just sit down and they can put the hot fresh. I'll speak for 5 or 10 minutes. It's always nice to have an opportunity to open your heart before the Vaishnavas, so I want to do that. I think that these last 5 or 6 years have been the most difficult years of my spiritual life. I never imagined that that anything could be as difficult as this. I have to say that sometimes I experienced terrible anguish and suffering over these 5 years. I have to constantly be reminded, and maybe one day I will see it for myself, that the decision I took to go back to my studies was really Krishna's arrangement, and Krishna led me that way. But if he did, it was, only to, it certainly purified me. It tested me more than anything. I don't think anything ever tested me as greatly as these 5 years have tested me. They showed me my weaknesses, I guess some strengths, but they made me realize how easily it is possible to be fallible. And when you're a guru, you're not supposed to be fallible. But the truth is that throughout our scriptures, great personalities have had fallible qualities revealed within them, only to have those fallible qualities transformed into some sort of glorious act. So I am only praying to Prabhupada and Krishna that in any way that I have come out short in these 5 years or 6 years, that somehow they turn it into some great spiritual asset. Prabhupada once said to me personally, he said, I had so many difficulties over the years. He said, there were so many troubles I faced, but now I realize that those difficult times became my greatest spiritual assets. So I would like to think that these difficult times for me have been my greatest spiritual assets, and they will become so. If you wonder what I'm talking about, it's because the nature of writing, the kind of writing I have had to do, is that unless you have studied in the academy, you don't understand what the philosophy, the ethos of the academy is. Just like Jiva Goswami had to go to Benares to study Mayavadi philosophy. It's comparable to that. I've had to study so many philosophies which oppose and contaminate the consciousness, and which we are advised not to do. But I have done it with the motive of trying to establish that Srila Prabhupada and his philosophy is a respectable and philosophy that is worthy of consideration on the part of the intellectual leaders of the world, just as Jiva Goswami did with the same motive. And so that has protected me, but it has not been a pleasant journey, I could say. And another thing is that my nature is to work a lot with my heart. I really, some of my close God brothers say that you're a person who makes decisions guided by the heart. And I really do. Sometimes Prabhupada said about me that he's very intelligent. But even though whether that's true or not, finally my heart prevails. But in doing this academic work, I think my heart has protected me, but all the work is done by my intelligence. And so it's left my heart, like a desert. And so this is very difficult for a person who likes to feel and taste deep spiritual emotions, to have to simply do so much with the head and not with the heart. So I'm just telling you this because this is an opportunity. You're all my family members, and so I feel like I should share with you, what is happening with me. And when I finish and I get my PhD and become Dr. Frog, then, I will balance my life again. The first thing that I'm going to do is go to the Dham, and I'll just stay in Govardhan and Vrindavan and stay in Lali and Mayapur and drink in the Dham again like I used to do. And then I'll spend more time traveling and preaching. And then I'll spend some of my time on academic work, but it'll be much more balanced again. And I think that, I'll be able to breathe out a great sigh of relief. Through all of this, my God brothers, I can say they protected me. I'm always on the telephone with people like Gurujan Prabhu, and Giriraj Maharaj, Keshav Bharti visits me, Shiva Maharaj visits me. These people protect me, and they care for me. Ramnath Maharaj visits me, they care for me, because they know how difficult it is. Everybody knows this, who knows what I'm doing. They all tell me, I wish I had brought this letter to read to you from Dasraj Prabhu, but he wrote this letter which explains the mission, and it gave me great strength. And the other thing that protects me is all of you, when I know that you're all counting on me. And beyond this, I know that the movement counts upon me, that in a sense, I'm the senior-most leader left, still leading our movement. I'm the only member of the original GBC that Prabhupada appointed who's still a GBC member. And so I feel a great responsibility to all of you and to the members of our movement that I must survive and come out victorious. And that protects me and gives me strength through these difficult times. My heart feels very heavy by all this, and I have to just say it. Whenever we meet, I always give you the State of the Union address. I'm sorry if it's a repeat each year, but the problem is that the thing that hasn't gone away yet. I won't talk about this anymore when I get out of this situation. The closest thing I can compare to my present situation is that I feel like I'm in jail. That's the only metaphor I can think of. I feel as if I'm in prison. And I put myself in this prison. There were certain circumstances that took place, and I went into the prison and gave the keys away, and I can't open the door. It's like if someone says, just open the door and walk out. I can't do that. When it's done, the door will automatically, the prison door will open up and I'll walk out. That's the only way I can get out of this situation. So I've really come to understand what faith is. I understand that you can't go against faith. Faith, not faith, faith, F-A-T-E, is much more powerful than you are because it's Krishna. And when faith works in a certain way, you have to just learn to accept it and work and do as best as you can within it. And then, if Krishna wishes, he can, the thing will change and everything will become completely transformed. Okay, so that's my piece. I would like to glorify all of you for my last few minutes to say that I thank all of you who are here year after year. I only garlanded a few of you who each deserve a garland and chandan and gifts. Some of you have tolerated harsh words from me, like Mahar. I gave him a hard time, his wife, but here he is, and thank you. I thank Jivananda for deciding that when I gave him a word, I said, whatever you do, don't leave Dallas. This morning when I got up, this is my nature, when I got up, I just thought, I hope the third not called Jivananda not enough to be here. And Jivananda is here this morning for Krishna. There's so many of you who are dear and near, and even those who are not as dear just because of the way things are. I'm so happy that you're here. You're all to be glorified, that you have made such a great sacrifice to, as Prabhupada said, to declare war on Maya, to actually say, I'm going to get out of this material world. Even if you don't always, win the battles, the war is not lost, and you're all going, you're forward soldiers, and you're wonderful. And, I just pray that I always have your association. I pray that Krishna always allows me to be in association with the devotees of this movement to my last breath. No matter how nice it may be and how good qualities others may have, still I think that I don't care if this is my family and you are who I want to be with. And finally I say about our children. Yesterday when I was seeing them, I think that the greatest jewels that we have are the children who come into Krishna consciousness. They are so special, and we should all give them the utmost love and care and protection, and give them every opportunity that they can remember Krishna throughout their life. And of course now we have old people like here today, and we have to give them all care and attention. This is what this movement is for. Finally, it's meant that we should share love with each other. But at the end of the day, the best teaching of all is to love Krishna and love the devotees. And love has to be shown by physical acts. You have to demonstrate your love. Don't just feel it in your mind and heart, but you have to show it in real acts of loving devotion. So go out of your way, show love, and you will be able to love Krishna more. Just understand this point, that the more you love others, then the more you'll be able to love Krishna, and the happier you will feel. This is what you're really made for. This is what the heart is for. This is what blood beats through the body for. It's to give care and service and kindness to others. Right? It's a great teaching of Christianity. This is the teaching, the primary teaching of Christianity is to love and serve another person. So Prabhupada said Christianity is Vaishnavism. So we should embrace this feeling. And that will attract people. You want to know how to make devotees, there's no other single key except this. When there are loving exchanges, it attracts so many people. So I take the dust of everybody's feet here, and I'll tolerate what all of you say about me later on. But again, I say that it could be said, and it is being said for all of our gurus. I'm sure that whatever qualities any of you will express and what you see about me are equally true for all the persons who I've mentioned, as well as others. So I'll stop here. We will come back into the temple. Our God brothers and God sisters can meet up in the quarters that I have for breakfast, but I promise you we'll be back here in 20, we'll eat in 20 minutes. It'll be really fast, but we're going to do that. So maybe Dwaita or Rasamajari, you're here. You can play a harmonium and just do some bhajans. So those of you who like to stay in the temple room can be here. Otherwise, if you want to walk outside, but I'm telling you, by 20 minutes to 10, you have to be back here. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhaktivedanta ki, Gaur Premanandi.
a number of speakers to make the offerings for the Vyasa Puja. And I'm going to start with asking, start by asking Mahatma Prabhu to say something to start off the Vyasa Puja offerings. Thank you very much.
Mahatma Prabhu ki jai!
The different rasas, so we can understand that he is a Madhurya Ras because he has his own crunch. Because around Radha Kund, all the gopis have their own crunch, and then they make arrangements. So, I remember in 1977, I believe, it might have been 78, it was the first Vyasa Puja celebration of one of my godbrothers. That year was the first Vyasa Puja celebrations for the original 11 disciples of Prabhupada who took up the service of initiating disciples. So after that morning ceremony, he walked out of the temple room and I walked with him to his quarters, and he said, that was the most miserable experience in my entire life. That I had to sit there and be glorified by so many people. So then, I often imagine that, of course, the spiritual master has to accept that service, and Prabhupada said he also has to accept the thankless task of chastising disciples, which is not in line with Vaishnava principles to chastise devotees. Then I often would think that when godbrothers speak, it must be a little bit painful or difficult sometimes for the guru, because he has to hear his glorification. So then I was thinking, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada said, if anyone glorifies me, he's my enemy. So I thought, well, I should say something bad, and then I'll become purified and I won't become his enemy. No. But in any case, it's difficult. And one time I was giving a Sunday lecture, and I was trying to help the audience understand what it's like, not what it's like to be God, but what it's like for God to be approached by people with material desire. So I said, now, every day you come to the temple, you face it. Every Sunday you come to the temple, you face the deities. So now imagine you were Krishna just for a moment. You were sitting on the altar, and all these people are coming, asking for benedictions. Give me money, give me wealth, give me health, give me this, give me that. And then someone comes and asks, oh, Lord, just whatever you want. How do you think you would feel? And immediately they understood. Yes, I have to come in the right mood. So I was thinking, when I was asked to speak, of trying to take that same idea of putting the disciple in the mood of the spiritual master. What would you, if you were Guru, expect of your disciples, or what would you appreciate? And then I began thinking of some of the things that Gurudev said about Mother Kirtida, and how he was so much appreciating her for her consciousness and her purity. And then I began thinking how Srila Prabhupada appreciated one of his disciples, Jayananda Prabhu. And Prabhupada at the end, I think it was after Jayananda Prabhu left, that Prabhupada said that he was very proud to have such a disciple, and he called him a pure devotee. And he recollected some of the things that Jayananda did, which actually were not significant. He drove me in his taxi. He gave his life savings. That is significant, but not in the sense that I think Prabhupada was making it significant in terms of I appreciated him because he did so many things, built 1 million temples, saved 1 million souls. But he was appreciating that he was a pure devotee. And that the act of giving the money was not that it was a significant amount, but that it was because of his purity that he gave that money. Because of his purity, he gave up his time and energy. He would drive Prabhupada around. He was willing to do anything. So this is how the spiritual master appreciates the disciple. And I remember last time when Gurudev was here, he was speaking, and in a sense expressing how frustrating it is for a spiritual master to speak about so many things that he knows his disciples are not going to follow. So I just kind of wanted to put everyone in that mood. And I think many of us can be in that mood. If we have children, we know it's frustrating if you have ideals for your children that they do not meet those expectations. You give them instructions, they neglect them. But how much more so for the Guru, whose sole responsibility in life is to deliver the disciples. So you could imagine the Guru having thousands of disciples that he's left in the material world, he would feel his mission as a failure. So there was one lecture in which Prabhupada was addressing the point of the spiritual master having to come back to save the disciple. He gave the story of Bhaktivedanta Thakur. And he said, if you don't become Krishna conscious, if you become fallen, your spiritual master will have to come back. And then Prabhupada said, but don't take advantage. Have pity on your poor spiritual master, that he's come for that mission. So, what I was hoping to communicate and articulate, although I didn't plan it out in my head so well, was the idea that what the spiritual master appreciates most, or ultimately what he appreciates most, is the Krishna consciousness that manifests within the disciple. And even Prabhupada said that in one of his purports. He said that a teacher becomes so much more enthusiastic to speak and to give to his students when the students themselves are enthusiastic to follow. So, in trying to get some inspiration for what I was going to say, I was remembering, it's kind of ironic, but I was remembering the statement that Prabhupada made, that Vyasa Puja is not simply a festival of fruits and flowers. It's ironic because, as we know, the first Vyasa Puja, was it the first? There were no flowers and Prabhupada walked out. Even though he said it's not a festival of fruits and flowers. But in that poem, Prabhupada said, Vyasa Puja is not a festival of fruits and flowers, but one who worships the words of the Guru is actually one who worships the Guru. So that was giving me some insight and inspiration into this, and I was thinking, especially on days like Vyasa Puja, these are days to meditate on these things. What is the mission of the Guru? What is the mission of the disciple? And one of the qualities which Tamal Krishna Maharaj has, which I wanted to glorify, is that he understands people, in my opinion, better than anyone. And many of Prabhupada's disciples said this about Prabhupada. He'd just come in front of Prabhupada, he couldn't hide anything, he knew. So we may come to the temple when Gurudev is here and dance enthusiastically and do so many things, and become what Bhaktivedanta called the Dandavat Prabhu. Whenever they see the Guru in Dandavat. So I think Dandavat, he called them Dandavat devotees. They're looking good, they're looking surrendered. But the Guru knows what's going on. And I would say, amongst anyone I've ever met, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, sometimes you can just see someone he's never met, and in a minute he can tell you about that person. So it's not that we can fake it, especially not with him. It's very difficult. And I think he's looking for in his disciples something more genuine than external. Even sometimes external service, we may think, I can't really become Krishna conscious, but I can do some service and kind of try to work out a deal that way. That I'll get entrance to the back door. But it's not exactly like that. Although Prabhupada appreciated service, still ultimately our Krishna consciousness is what is most desirable. And then also in thinking of the future of this movement, sometimes I think, who will worship the deities 50 years from now, 100 years from now? If we don't have Krishna consciousness, how will anything go on? So obviously it's a concern of the Guru and a concern of the GBC who has disciples maintaining the temple, how things will go on, and ultimately they can only go on through Krishna consciousness, because everything else will fail. So I just kind of wanted to present that as a theme for everyone to meditate on, especially today, that Gurudev can't be fooled by any external show of devotion. He knows where everyone is at, and he really wants, and you know where he really wants you to be at, but he's not going to force you. You can only force yourself, but at least understand where he wants you to be, and gradually come closer to that with every Vyasa Puja. Perhaps next year we can become closer than we were this year. Thank you very much. Shri Gurudev ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Jai said they rolled out the beige carpet. To the red carpet.
Thank you, Mahatma Guru. And now I'll ask if Mother Kalangana can speak. For those of us who do not know her, she's a very great Vaishnavi mother from Bhaktivedanta Manor, and in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of people, the best sweet maker in the world.
Krishna Consciousness, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Namaste Saraswati Goswami. I offer my obeisances to Lord Chaitanya. By his mercy, even a lame man can cross the mountains, and a dumb man can recite the holy scriptures. So I am a lame man and a dumb man, both. So, by inconceivable mercy of Lord Krishna, I am a god sister of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, which I completely don't deserve to be his god sister. And Krishna put me in such a situation now that I am supposed to speak to you. So I am just praying to Lord Chaitanya because by his mercy everything is possible. I remember there is two reasons why I am here. Because first reason is that Tamal Krishna Maharaj is my Siksha Guru. And second reason is that Mother Kirtida, last year, she invited me here. She paid my ticket to come to Dallas. I didn't even know that. She doesn't tell me that. because she knew that Tamal Krishna Maharaj likes these Mangalati sweets. And she was so anxious to please her guru that she will do anything possible that the guru is satisfied. Therefore, she sponsored this ticket without my knowledge, and because she wanted that I introduce this system, how I am cooking this Mangalati sweets here, to satisfy Tamal Krishna Maharaj, her guru. So these are two reasons why I am here again today. What I can say from my heart about Tamal Krishna Maharaj, I know him for many years. I am now 29 years in a movement. And I can see a situation when Srila Prabhupada was on a planet. So this is true. Like Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he says today, he was completely protected by Srila Prabhupada. Not only him, all these dearest disciples of Srila Prabhupada, like this dearest was like Tamal Krishna Maharaj was mentioned today, all these great devotees, Vaishnavas. They was completely protected by Srila Prabhupada. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was extremely dear to Srila Prabhupada. I was seeing this by my own eyes. And today, the situation is that Tamal Krishna Maharaj is a very humble Vaishnava. He is walking between us, and it's very easy to have access to speak to him. And I'm just thinking that certainly he needs a protection, because this is what he is doing now. He's certainly very, very dear to Srila Prabhupada. It's a great service. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj is very important for me because many years ago he came to Bhaktivedanta Swami, he gave a class, and at the same time he was offering Puja work to Radha Gokulananda. And after, because Tamal Krishna Maharaj is seeing everything, so I don't know, when he was in a Pujari room, he saw these Mangalati sweets. And yes, he's so merciful, just appreciate. And he came to his class and he says, who makes these Mangalati sweets? So he wrote to say, Kulangana. And he looked at me and he says, I was in white, so I don't know, he doesn't know who I am, but he looked around and said, this is you. He showed at me. So I said, yes, it's me. And he said, if you do this service, so you will go back to Godhead in this lifetime. So I was surrendering for all these years, even it was so many difficulties, to this service by His mercy. And I was about 7 months ago in India. I became very sick. I had a tropical disease, and I was extremely sick. I was in hospital for 1 month, and when I come back, I was not able to start to cook Mangalati sweets. So I surrendered to Pujari work in Bhaktivedanta Swami. So now I come here again, and because Kirtina is here, and I just she was asking me to come here. I spoke to her every day, nearly every day from Bhaktivedanta Manor, and she was asking me if I could come. So everybody likes her in Bhaktivedanta Manor, and I was very surprised. Everybody was saying, yes, Kurangana, go there, because she wants you to come. So I was very encouraged, it was very nice, and because I was anxious to give up my service, even it was not cooking Mangalati sweets, and I come here. And now here, first time since 5 months, I again start to cook Mangalati sweets. And I was thinking that Maya is very strong, because I was thinking that I have not enough strength to cook these Mangalati sweets. So Maya is extremely strong. So here I will read you from Srimad Bhagavatam. Dear Lord, unless one worships the lotus feet of a great devotee, one will be conquered by the illusory energy, and his intelligence will be bewildered. Indeed, who has not been carried away by the waves of material enjoyment, which are like poison. Your illusory energy is unconquerable. No one can see the path of this material energy or tell how it is working. Without worshipping the lotus feet of a great devotee, one cannot be free from Maya's influence. Srila Narottama Dasa Thakur therefore says, Chadya Vaishnava Seva Nistara Payeche Keva. Who has been freed from Maya's clutches without serving the lotus feet of a Vaishnava? Only a devotee can surpass Maya's great influence. If one is serious about escaping Maya's influence and returning home back to Godhead, one must associate with a sadhu, like Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and all of you here are so kind to me. That is the verdict of all scriptures. By the slight association of a devotee, one can be free from the clutches of Maya. Without the mercy of the pure devotee, one cannot get freedom by any means. Certainly, a pure devotee's association is necessary in order to obtain the loving service of the Lord. One cannot be free from the clutches, Maya's clutches, without sadhu sangha, the benediction of a great devotee. One cannot become the Lord's pure devotee without taking the dust of a great devotee on his head. A pure devotee is niskinchana. He has no material desire to enjoy the material world. One has to take shelter of such a pure devotee in order to attain his qualities. The pure devotee is always free from the clutches of Maya and her influences. Unfortunately, in my heart is a lot of material desires. I am not free from material desires. And so I am the most thankful to my spiritual master that I can be guided by Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who is completely pure, who has no a pinch of material desires. And I am only hoping that by his mercy and mercy of Mother Kirtida, such a merciful devotee, pure devotee without material desires, I will be able to remember Lord Krishna at the moment of death. Thank you. Glory to Srila Prabhupada and Tamal Krishna.
So we've actually, moving on to time, there's very little time that we have to have all the speakers that we had actually assigned to speak. So I will ask if the speakers will, what we, yeah. Okay. Let's, I'm going to name 2 speakers at a time so that the next speaker is ready to speak after the one who will speak. So I'm going to ask now if Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu will come up and speak, and if Mother Rasakya will be prepared to speak next. Is she here, Mother Rasakya? Let's see. If someone can go and find her, it'll be great.
She went to pick someone up, she said.
Oh, okay. All right. And then we'll have Dr. Carl speak. Oh, here we go. Thanks.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. When Gurudev was speaking this morning about seeing all the different cultures as we're walking the block, and seeing how wonderful it is to come to these associations, these festivals, to see so many Vaishnavas, and just by seeing them you become purified. It's very difficult for me to speak like this because I get all emotional all the time, so please forgive me for that. When I was studying the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita recently, and part of the second chapter, it is describing one of the realizations I got, at least from studying that, was that we have to place great importance on certain things in life. And this is culture and intelligence. Like children, they don't have that ability, they don't have any intelligence or culture. They're just like little animals, they don't appreciate things, they break things in the house that are very valuable to their parents. They have absolutely no understanding of what's going on in life. So, we're in a situation in the material world where we're like that, at least speaking for myself, that it's very difficult to understand how to appreciate and what is valuable in this life. This is according to the Vedas, that Tato Brahma Jigyasa is to understand what's really valuable. So, in the study of the Bhagavad Gita, I was thinking that the association of Vaishnavas has to be placed on the highest calculation of values that we can have. Recently, of course, we've been seeing, one of my realizations was when Mother Kirtana came, that she was in the hospital in great distress, there in the hospital, getting some tests done and different things. But when Tamal Krishna Maharaj showed up, after she had come here to Rasikendra's house, it greatly uplifted her and put her completely out of anxiety. And it provided the devotees here for an opportunity to meditate on the end of life and how we should value the association of devotees in that situation. Try and keep it short. One of the prayers in Sri Upanishad is when the devotee is praying that he hopes that the Lord remembers all that he has done for him. I was thinking that this must mean, at least part of the meaning must be, that he's hoping that the Lord will arrange for him to have some good association at death to help him overcome the fear of death. And so I feel really fortunate that he came to give Kirtan strength and all of us strength. And anyway, I just want to say that thing.
Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu ki jai. Thank you very much. Well, the Kirtida will be speaking after Carl, who has spoken.
Please allow me to offer my humble obeisances. I hadn't expected to speak today, so a little while ago I thought I should just make a quick list of things I should not talk about. One of my main weaknesses is a tendency to sentimentality, and so I knew there were certain areas I should not touch upon. I should not speak about Srila Gurudev's love and compassion and great well of this. It's something that you know already. We've all experienced. Certainly, I should not attempt to glorify Srila Gurudev through his disciples. Although quickly came to mind how last year my family and I were, by the grace of Srila Prabhupada and the mercy of Srila Gurudev and his great generosity, able to take pilgrimage in Vrindavan. First day in Vrindavan, Mother Kirtida was there, and it was her last day there. And certainly we all know how closely one associates Kirtida with Vrindavan, and how important that last day would be for her there. And she took so much of that final day to make arrangements, to make us comfortable, to make sure we had everything that we wanted, that we could somehow be allowed entry into Vrindavan. It was a very special sacrifice there. I most definitely should avoid anything about how I have, how can I say it, the paradigm of an older brother. The very best that one could ever pray for. All the love and instruction I received as a young child are nothing compared to the love and instruction I've received in the last few years. I think better to stay on subjects that are more objective somewhat. Gurudev spoke this morning about his experiences with academia. In the last 20 years, I have attempted to learn the names of many thousands of students. Certainly, there's never been one in my experience like this. Every student takes tests. This is what a student does. But how can we compare those tests to the tests that Srila Gurudev has encountered simply entering into this world of academia. When Srila Prabhupada came and brought Krishna Consciousness to the United States, he was bringing a philosophy, a way of life that seemed very foreign to the citizens of this place, and this is a culture that would not seem at first to be a very good, fertile breeding ground, fertile land for the growth. As Srila Gurudev enters the culture of academia, he came to a country that is so inimical to the very basis of Krishna consciousness. There is no place for the open heart in academia. The very philosophy seems at such odds, and yet this is the place that he was brought. I suppose as one of the lesser members of that institution, I'm like one of the lesser guards in that prison he spoke of. Every student makes sacrifices for their education. It goes without saying. Every devotee has sacrifices in their spiritual life. But how many of us would walk into the prison and close the door behind us? That he has done. And of course, Srila Gurudev is not, he does not do anything halfway. Yes. In SMU, he was not just a participant in the university, he took the university by storm. They've never known anybody like that. And this is an institution, especially in religious studies, of great reputation. And then not to stop there, but to continue on to arguably the most prestigious of institutions in academia in the entire world. And again, not just to be another student, but the paradigm again of what a student can do. And to bring both, to take the culture of academia as a means of glorifying Srila Prabhupada is such an extraordinary achievement. We will see it has already been happening through the honors that he received at SMU. We will continue to see this. This is something that will build, that the academic community will, and it already is, not just including this member, but in its own way, glorifying his achievements. And of course it is not his achievements, but as a representative again of his spiritual master. So I guess I just wanted to speak to the sacrifice of that academic enterprise and also the impact that he's having on the world of academia, the way of bringing academic concerns and spiritual concerns, finding a place where they can meet. Hare Krishna.